Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're well and enjoyed the weekend. Today, we are going to talk about relationships. I've been told to introduce myself and wait a few minutes before we start. So, here goes. I am Pavan Rajpal. I am a consultant psychiatrist and I practice in Holly Street, London, and at Priory Hospital in Bristol. Majority of my work now is remote, so I see almost all my patients on video, secure video platform, which includes people in, say, for example, in prisons and people sometimes who are abroad. I have been working in this field for the last 2 decades, and I've had some experience of life as such. I have been fortunate that a lot of people have shared their life stories with me, and that has allowed me to have some knowledge about relationships, and more importantly, how should we go about learning about them? How should we go about changing things so that we get the best out of relationships? And more importantly, being in control of the outcomes of such relationships. I'm hoping to share some of that with you today, and I hope that this would be helpful. Our relationships define us. They describe who we are to us and to the environment around us. The most important and strongest basis on which relationships are built on is love. It's one of the most profound feelings that we have. We learn how to love right from the time that we are born, from our mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. This is where we love an emotion called love, which is the source of biggest joy for us. Regretfully, it is also the source of grief and despair at that times. What not many people know is relationships can literally impact on our life every day and eventually even bring death. They make a life worth it. We know that people who are in a loving and happy relationships live longer, and people who are in a toxic relationship live shorter. In a relationship, we give and we receive, and hence both the partners in the relationship exchange. So, if love is the most important aspect of relationship, what is it exactly? I can help you understand what love is based on science. I have read lots of books on it, or mention things like sociologist, where we talk about love in an abstract sense, or describe love that I feel and receive almost every day from close family members. Scientifically speaking, love is almost an evolutionary adaptation. It allows couples to get together so they can have more children, pass on to pass on to the future our genes. In social terms, it's fascinating because it keeps the people in a relationship together for longer to have more children. Of course, there are people who say love is more about what you feel after repeated exposure. However, there are scientists who will say it takes less than a second to fall in love. It's a combination of what we see, what we feel. It's a socio-cultural concept. We know it requires intimacy, commitment, passion, and we also know that couples in relationship report these things go up and down as they stay together. Does it really mean that our relationship goes up and down? Well, I'm not so sure about that. What is true is that defining love is almost impossible. But what is also true that it is the basis of relationships. We need to accept that the way we feel, express love has an impact on our relationships. It allows the relationships to be healthy, inspiring, helping, supporting you to reach your excellence, or it could also be toxic. We know that connecting to people at a social level is innate, it's genetic. We need to connect to people. We are social animals. However, relationships is a learned skill. The first time we learn about relationship is from our primary caregivers, our mothers. It makes us feel safe, satiated, feel inspires us. These are the original building blocks of any relationship in future. What we feel and experience in the past is what we build our future relationships on. Our mothers, our primary caregivers, in some cases, allow us to feel safe. They allow us to feel what our bellies full feels like, uh, care and warmth, and how it feels to be safe. If for any reason these things are not possible, then a feeling of vulnerability and lack of safety continues to cause challenges for the rest of your life. We develop these patterns for the rest of the life for all our future relationships. So we learn while young, then we practice between cousins, brothers, friends, much later in work, then with our romantic partners, and then with our children. Reminding ourselves that the way we behave now is a reflection of our experience in the past is extremely important. Because if for any reason we did not have an opportunity or time to learn how to do this, this can cause challenges. This is called difficulties in adulthood. Once we have learned these basic blocks, we practice them, we change, we adapt, we learn more skills. However, the core building blocks still play a role in our relationships. And these extend from our brothers, sisters in childhood and adulthood, wider social circle, at work, with friends, acquaintances, our romantic relationships. We know that each relationship requires an effort of time, emotions you put into a relationship to get something out. For example, we know the relationship between a parent and a child in a lot of cases is almost always the parent replaying their childhood. We know that parents do with their children the same way it was done to them when they were children. They replay a lot of those things. If these experiences have been positive, inspiring, helping the child reach its excellence, then that's what parents would do. Of course, it's possible to change in case that's not correct, but for that you need insight and a little about it a little bit later. Let's talk about romantic relationships. So, how do people find and connect to other people to form these loving relationships? The outcome we need to always focus on is to find a relationship that inspires us. It enhances us, it supports us to achieve the best possible outcome. Seeking an appropriate mate to procreate might be a genetic drive, but forming a healthy relationship allows us to achieve so much more. I hope it's not a surprise to any one of you know to understand that men and women choose their partners on different parameters. A research done recently mentioned that almost everybody mentioned looks and the current situation. However, when further questioned, men would choose their partners based on present, how they look, how what they're wearing, whereas women tend to choose their partners on potential, on safety. What might their education be? What might their future job be? Effectively, assessing what resources somebody might bring to while bringing up their offspring. We also know when couples get together after meeting in a wider social network or while pursuing a common interest or a hobby, they stay together longer, happier. If a couple has a weaker social network, then they may take longer to make a formal commitment, say, like marriage. We also know novelty or newness added to the relationship makes it last longer. It makes the couple usually happier. If we are able to get this concept of love right, we will find that we control the outcomes of our relationships quite well. So, how can you choose the right partner? Control the outcome of relationship. There has been a lot of research about this across the globe, different cultures, different age groups, different people, and there are a lot of common outcomes of findings that people have thought. When people are asked, they will usually say it's attraction. However, when they start ranking, they put down personality traits as number two. When these couples were researched over a period of time, it was almost always the personality traits came out as the most important factor compared to the looks. Emotional stability, people being agreeable, people allowing their partners to achieve more have been found to be the most important factors that people choose to form relationships. So, the first important suggestion I would make if you want a good outcome from a relationship is to choose somebody that has a personality that's complementary to you. The second most important reason is to have a very honest conversation with yourself. Get to know a little bit about yourself. Develop that insight into how much and what kind of investment and commitment you are going to make into that relationships. In my working life, I have experienced that people who have struggled while growing up or have had trauma while growing up are not able to put so much investment in that relationship and the outcomes are not so great. It is not their fault, but it is about knowing that the past can play a role in your investment in the current relationship. This becomes a negative factor. And the final thing that I would suggest as the very important mechanism where you could control the outcome is to hold your partner in positive regard. That happens when you are able to hold yourself in a positive regard. So, self confidence is an important issue when you think about having a great relationship and controlling the outcome and getting the best possible outcome. Your self esteem, your self confidence controls how much respect you can give your partner. And this final factor that will help you get the best possible outcomes in a relationship is important because to realize that your self esteem and your self confidence might be a reflection of your past experiences. If you don't respect yourself, if you don't love yourself, it's difficult to love somebody else, and that can impact the outcome of relationships. And the final factor, I suppose, is a frank discussion as to where both of you would like to go forward in a relationship. Sometimes people who have painful past experiences struggle to move forward because of the burden that they're carrying. And your partner might be somebody who looks forward and future, pushing you to become a better version of yourself. But because of your burdens, because of your weight, you are stuck. Once you're able to have a look with yourself within you and realize that you and somebody else might have same view to move forward, you will find that going on the same journey with joint agreement is one of the better ways, so that you know that your relationships is complementing to both of you. I suppose it's about we're talking about intimacy as well. It's an extremely important part of any romantic relationship. It's more than just sex. It's how we connect physically, mentally, emotionally with our partner. It's about sharing common goals. It's about ideas. It's a, it's about knowing that you would come back to a safe, loving place with no judgment. There's a lot of research to say that our ability to be intimate with somebody else and for somebody's ability to be intimate with us is something that's learned. It's based on our past experiences. And a painful past experience can negatively impact on this ability. It is extremely important to appreciate that for every day that we experience today, it will have an impact on tomorrow. And a painful, despairing, griefful day has a possibility of making tomorrow a little bit more difficult. I hope this has been helpful, but if I would ask you to remember one thing, I would say is our being able to feel safe while growing up in childhood, in my experience, is one of the extremely important factors in our developing inner resilience, our confidence, which is an extremely important part of forming, maintaining relationships, but more importantly, being able to control the outcomes of such. It allows us to be relaxed, it allows us to be open, it allows us to connect, it allows us to invest in a relationship by communicating, by being intimate. And if we do not feel safe within ourselves, it evokes defense mechanisms in ourselves where we tend to become closed, avoid interaction, withdraw. And each of this plays a negative role in our relationships, be this with our friends, be it at work, be it with our parents. I suppose in the end, I would like to say that we need to understand that we learned our building blocks, relationship building blocks, right in childhood while growing up, experimenting, learning, expanding. And if there have been issues while doing that, to appreciate that this can cause challenges and to resolve them. I hope it has been helpful. I will record this interview and put it on the place for you to check later. I'm hoping to have next week the start of Facebook chats about super parenting. This was a project that I was involved in when trying to work out what skills as a parent would be most helpful when dealing with children. I wrote a book on that which was received successfully. And I hope you enjoyed this conversation and you will enjoy the next conversation. Thank you so very much. Have a very good weekend.